All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pump House's series of artist talks. I'm Olivia, the gallery coordinator here at the Pump House, and today I'm joined by Leanne Poellinger, whose current exhibition, Poetry and Paper, will be on display in our front gallery from February 28th through April 13th, 2024. So thank you for joining me, Leanne. Why don't we start with you giving us a little bit of a background of your experiences in the arts?
Okay, thanks for having me. I've always been an admirer of art and sort of a arts crafts lover. As a kid, I made my own paper dolls and tinkered with lots of different craft things. But in the last few years, I've really made a concentrated effort to just dedicate more time to just trying new mediums. I've taken classes in different things and just experimenting with, I like lots of color. I keep getting drawn back to paper. So maybe that's my paper doll origin story. So I really do enjoy paper collage. I do a lot of paper collage. But I've tried lots of different mediums. I just really like to create colorful things that make me happy to look at them.
Well, wonderful. Let's get into a few pieces in your exhibition. There's something special about this show. Alongside Leanne's pieces, she will also be displaying original poems made by her paternal grandmother. So, if you'd like to discuss a little bit of the inspiration of combining your work with hers and your process in creating this artwork.
Yeah, I was trying to look for something to unify, a bunch of pieces together. And my dad's mother, I'd never met her. She passed away before I was born, but people have often said that I resemble her physically. She made copper things out of copper. I've made things out of copper. She was a poet. She was an artist. Lived in northern Michigan. So I've always felt sort of this connection to her, even though I didn't really know her. And she wrote a book of poetry. Many of them are about my dad, so that makes them extra special. So I thought it would be a neat way to have an exhibition that has sort of a continuing theme by making each piece inspired by one of her poems. So that's what I'm doing here.
Wonderful. And how do you start drawing inspiration from um, her written work into visual artwork?
Yeah, really, I just, read each poem a few times and looked for words that, made something come to mind visually to me. Like this piece is called Voices, but it mentions a frog or peepers, she calls them. It mentions a bee, it mentions rain. So I just put some of those key elements and just came up with an image that would be fun for me to create, that would have some texture and some color and some depth, hopefully, but also wouldn't be so focused on the poem that it doesn't mean anything without the poem, that it's just also kind of a fun piece of art to look at. So I did that with each piece, and it was really sort of challenging for some, but really enjoyable to do as well.
Well, wonderful. Let's move on to the next piece we're discussing today. With this piece, could you describe your process in layering papers and choosing different textures of papers?
Yeah, this was a different technique for me. Much of the paper collage I do is almost all paper collage. I may have a little hint of some ink or paint. This one, I wanted to really try to show some depth and have some different mediums. So the background, the daffodils, this is a poem that about daffodils and violets and stuff. So the background, the daffodils, is acrylic paint and it has sort of a wash over it to make it look really muted. And then the violets and the black cricket in the front are all paper. So it was a different process for me, and fun to try something new.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's really enjoyable to see the work combined with writing. It allows there to be kind of a conversation between the two of them, which I am looking forward to seeing on display in our gallery. So let's move on to this next piece. Is there anything you'd like to discuss or point out in your process in creating this work?
Yeah, this is a big piece for me. This is I think this one is 16 inches by 20 inches, which a lot of my work is much smaller. So this is fully covered. The canvas is fully covered in paper. So this one took a long time to do because it's lots of little strips of paper. Just obviously representing birch trees. There's just a mention of birches in the poem, so it's sort of a loose connection, but also has that, northern Michigan or northern region look that a lot of us see out around here as well. So I think the scenery a lot of people can relate to seeing near us or where they like to visit. So I thought that was something that a lot of people might enjoy looking at.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this piece was entirely covered with paper. Do you have any sort of idea of how many layers of paper you put into each piece?
That's a good question. No, obviously, like with any piece of art, you start in the background. So I'm sure I started with this one was I think this was the first piece I did. So I probably did it almost a year ago. Start with the sky and kind of layer as you get to the foreground. So I couldn't even tell you. Layers, probably maybe 3 layers, but there are lots and lots of little strips of paper in there.
All right, great. To our next piece. With this, could you discuss what you use to attach the paper to the sheet you're putting them
Sure,
on?
yeah. This piece has a lot of handmade paper in it. Some little like origami paper or scrap paper, but a lot of it's handmade paper, which is fairly thin. And many artists and works for me well to use matte medium, which is often a top coat, but it can work as a nice, totally clear glue if it's not real heavy paper. So I use that on this piece and a lot of pieces. Sometimes you can just use a white craft glue that dries real clear. This one, I believe I did use matte medium for. This is a poem about my dad. So kind of fun. So the question box, the little boy examining things, the magnifying glass, the center of that is just a piece of vellum, which I had not used before in collage, but it was fun to try again, a different process um, I think it's kind of fun.
Definitely, yeah. One thing have really enjoyed looking at these pieces so far is all of the different small patterns that you notice as you look at each piece more and more. They create quite a bit of depth, so they're very enjoyable to look at. So we're looking forward to having your work here in the galleries.
Yeah, I'm hoping people, when they look at these, they'll, discover little pieces that as they look closer, or maybe find the image that connects to the poem, or look for a piece of paper that they might recognize from another piece or something. So there's a lot of different tiny little elements that hopefully will draw the eye.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I would recommend everyone come to our free artist reception on March 1st. Leanne will be there along with our other exhibiting artists. So thank you so much. And is there any last things you would like to mention about your upcoming exhibition?
I don't think so. I appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to being there. I've always loved seeing other artists work at the Pump House, so it's a great honor for me to be part of that group, and looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching today.